Welcome, worthy listeners, to episode 60 of the Inglorious Bastards podcast. You're going to have to bear with me a little bit today because I have a cold. I have kind of a hodgepodge for you today. I promised that I would be doing a series on the new characters, and since that time we've successfully had an interview with MJ on the Zelendor. We had an interview with John on Morloman, and I'll be talking a little bit about Okrin myself. And Okrin, of course, was played by Vic, one of my friends. Okrin is the white-haired, beautiful bard that he describes himself as a herald of Vanya. Of course, Vanya was a Valar. Who prized beauty. So in the first part of the campaign we had, we stuck pretty closely to the Adventures in Middle-earth races. We had 5 characters that made up sort of the primary races of Middle-earth. And here in part 2, we're now including another elf, but we're also including an Avathari and a Maiar. This isn't the first time that a Maiar has played a major role in a Lord of the Rings story. Obviously, thinking of Melian and Gandalf, Sauron, all of the Istari. So Okrin is a Maiar, sort of in the service of Vanya, and throughout history, there are these really famous bards like Glirhuin, Gleowine. These people that have written famous lays, right? The Lay of Lathian. And what we've done with Okrin is we've essentially combined all of these bards. So let's just go through a few of them for Okrin. So Okrin claims to be the bard that was once Tinfan Gelion in Doriath. Having been mentioned in the Lay of Lathian, he was Glirhuin to the woodmen of Brethil in the time of Turin. He was actually Rhiannon in Numenor. And finally, when he was called back to the service of Vanya, he was Gleowine in Rohan under King Theoden. We just thought this would be a really fun way to sort of bring together, that there's this Maiar who decided to essentially tell the story of the children of Ilúvatar, who has been among them since the beginning, singing their songs and telling the legends of these people. And when he is brought back into service, Vanya calls him back because this shadow has been released. And we had a character like Riken who traveled across the straight road through this portal that they opened in this ritual, and we had the party of people that traveled across the straight road on Círdan's ships. Well, one of the things that we really haven't discussed much is this other way to travel across the straight road, really the only other way, and that is the Allure Male, the Path of Dreams, which is talked about a little bit. I believe it was in the Book of Lost Tales, but you also see some of this if you've ever studied the Atlas of Middle Earth. You'll see this drawn sort of above the land, and the Path of Dreams is essentially this way that human men and women, mostly children, travel to the land of the elves, to the Cottage of Lost play for story time and for supper. Being a Maiar, being in the service of Vanya, we said that Okrin traveled back from Rohan across the Allure Male, and joined up with our characters, obviously in Avalone, when they were imprisoned. I think he first met with Riken when Riken came through the portal. So there we have it. There's Okrin in a nutshell, the bard, the bard of ages, really. Now having assumed his own moniker, Okrin, being a part of the Nos Glanador, the Fellowship of Light. So moving on from Okrin, a few other things for you today. We do have some really exciting interviews coming up in October. We have Paul Strack, who is a longtime role player and creator of the Elvish data model. So we're going to talk to him about his eldamo.org when he comes on the podcast. And we're also going to run some Quenya words that we've used in the podcast by him. In addition to that, October is kind of our language-themed month. We are going to be interviewing Fiona Jolings, who runs realelvish.net, and she has a book on Sindarin and Neo-Sindarin. And we will be talking to her, and I'll be running some of those Elvish words by her that we've used in the podcast. What else do I have for you? So the other thing I wanted to talk about tonight was possibly doing a fan interview. So if you are out there and you've listened to multiple episodes, and I'm sure there's a few of you out there, if you're interested in being interviewed on the Inglorious Bastards podcast, please go to our website and click the contact button. The other thing I'll mention is that, originally when we did this campaign, it wasn't going to be a podcast, right? We were playing Dungeons and Dragons, and we happened to be recording these sessions, mostly so I could, remember all the fun times that we had. So there are times that we are not as descriptive as we should be, and possibly even episodes where it might make more sense to actually see what we're talking about on the maps that we've recorded. So where the podcast is a great thing to listen to in the car and while you're working out or whatever on your way to work, there may be some episodes that you decide, hey, you know what, I want to go to that YouTube video or go to the website and check out the YouTube video, and that is certainly available to you. We have made that available on the website, so please feel free to check those out. The other thing that we're going to start with here in episode 60 is an outro, right? We have this beautiful intro that we've had produced, but now, one of the things I've realized in listening to some of the podcast episodes myself is I realized it's not always clear when the episode is over. It just kind of cuts to silence. And so starting in episode 60, we will have an outro, so everybody will know when the end of the episode is upon us. Outside of that, we will be, in episode 61, we will be coming into the Cottage of Lost play and meeting both Little Heart, the Gong Warden, and the couple Lindo and Vare that live at the Cottage of Lost play. And we're going to see many children there, and we're going to, obviously the party is trailing the man in black. And something that I had written up for the party was a dream that Feredir had as a young boy. Now remember, I've stayed pretty clear here in the campaign that traveling across the straight road, be it via the Allore Male or the on a ship, time is kind of wonky, right? So that people visiting the Cottage of Lost play, maybe in dream, they don't necessarily see or experience the things that they're experiencing in their exact time. So I'll leave this open to interpretation, but take a listen. I'm going to read what I had written for the characters, and think about what it could possibly mean for Feredir in the future. Eriador, third age, 29-39. The child was asleep, and all the world around him was stirring with the first light of day. Red was the horizon as the dawn drew nigh. It was cold that morning, and the heavy dew sat upon the ground and on the blankets that surrounded the sleeping boy. To the north lie the ruined stone walls of outer Anuminas. The crumbling stones gave he and his mother some protection against predators, both beast and orc. Despite the danger, the once great city always comforted her. She watched as he began to wake. His eyelids flitted back and forth, a clear sign that he was dreaming. She rested a hand on his chest, and he rested more peacefully. Soon he would awake, and he would tell her about his dream. This was a little game they played each morning. He remembered his dreams vividly and often would recount strange and obscure visions of far-off places, but the boy was never bothered. She marveled at his seeming understanding of the Allure Male, the path of dreams, for she had only nightmares. When it came time to play the dream game with her son, she made up stories of fanciful people and animals. Her stories always had happy endings. She did not tell the truth, for she was afraid to close her eyes. The last 6 years she had wandered with him in the wild, and every night she dreaded closing her eyes. Since the passing of Califar, the boy's father, at times had been difficult for her. She looked down at him with her eyes, and his eyes were open. He was looking at her. Au revoir, Feredir, she said in the Sindarin tongue. Good morning, she repeated. The boy smiled. I was there again, Naneth, Feredir whispered to his mother. He often spoke in a patchwork of words of both man and elves, and Naneth was how he referred to his mother. Gilwen was her given name. The man and woman were there again. They were of the Eldar, I think, but inside their house there were other children, he paused. There were some grown men and women, too. Did you play with them, she asked. Not this time, he said. I saw a man standing in the garden staring toward the west. He was dressed in black. Gilwen waited for him to remember his dream. She knew that the more he talked about it, the more he would recall. When he saw me, the man patted my head. He paused again and looked confused for a moment. No weapons are allowed in the house. Gilwen made a face at this. She didn't like to encourage any talk of weapons or fighting. Let us begin packing up. There is a red dawn this morn. His hand brought her back to his chest, and he continued recounting his dream. The sword burned like the morning sky, Naneth, but the blade was black, like the hills at night. I like more your dreams of animals and forest than of your men and swords and armor, she said in a serious face. Feredir shrugged and smiled at his mother. Then he released her hand and began to sit up. As the two kin packed their things and warmed themselves by the small fire, Feredir thought quietly about the words the man in black had spoken to him before leaving the garden. He recalled the words in his mind. See you soon, kid. See you soon. With the rest of the episode, I want to leave you with the end of our last session that our players played as they came into the Cottage of Lost play. So you'll get a little sort of preview introduction. I think you're even introduced to Little Heart, the Gong Warden. Enjoy.
Let me take us on to this map here, and we'll end for the evening. I knew this would run a little late today, but most of the sessions won't be like this. So along the way, you see this guy. He joins you. Oh wow, that guy's awesome. Who's that guy?
That's my friend.
Did somebody say something about this guy earlier?
A couple of you have met him. Is his name number one?
Right?
Yeah. Who does number one work for?
Who throws a shoe? Honestly.
So he sort of joins you along the way, and he would greet Morloman and say, "Greetings. So I see that you succeeded on your mission to rescue these fine people."
Yes, it was quite the adventure, but I'm glad that we're here.
So I take it you're still on your quest to probably following the gentleman that passed by here earlier.
That's right. We seek the man in black, not the man in dark gray.
With no face. He's really scary. So he leads you. He says, "Come with me. We'll go see Lindo and Vare, and they'll be able to sort of let you know if they've seen anything in the area and answer any questions that you might have." And so he leads you to this place, kind of, it looks like a little sort of farmstead, and there are all these like human children running around. So it's just kind of weird You've not seen this anywhere else on Tol Eressëa. So, Lindo, let me show you what they look like, and then we'll sort of call it a night. PC Eressëa. So Vare looks like this. They're like a husband and wife combo here. So so let's yeah. So some of you have these lore cards. Probably the Cottage of Lost play. You would have that.
Yep. Formerly known as the Cottage of Children and Cottage of the Play of Sleep, was a house upon Tel Eressëa where Lindo and Vare dwelt.
Vare. So you've been here before, Vic.
I greet them.
So do you remember how you got here?
Here.
This was one of the trivia questions that I asked you guys. The other way to Tol Eressëa.
Hell, I know a lot about this.
You do?
Yeah, we talked about it.
Oh,
I'm not gonna say anything because we went like in depth on it.
That's right. Yeah. So it's on this map. If you take a look at the sort of the top circle, the Olore Mare. It's the path of dreams.
Okay,
And,
so that's how I got here before?
Yeah, remember you visited old Tom Bombadil and he...
Oh, yeah, okay.
He gave you the express route to Tol Eressëa when you were called back.
Mm-hmm.
So Lindo and Vare will come out and greet you, and the children sort of run up to you. And you guys have Arcana to interview. Some of you have Arcana. If you want to do some Arcana checks, I can share some information.
I'm just gonna sort of stand back while the kids check out everybody else because I want them around me because I'm smoking.
So, yeah. So both MJ, both Iselindor and Feredir, you would recognize that these children are non-corporeal.
Thank you.
And you see a very familiar child, Feredir. You recognize one in particular. Looks a little bit like you did, child.
Well, that's weird. Just because we're related, or because it's me? Ooh.
I don't know.
Do I start going insane?
No.
Okay.
Need 9 shadow rolls out of you.
So there's a little quick blog entry that I wrote about this exact scene. Do you remember this, Marco? So we can spend. We've gotten kind of late here, so we'll catch up on story stuff at the beginning of the next session. So you guys are now at the Cottage of Lost play. You've met someone named. He introduced himself as Little Heart. Some of you know him as Okrin. And then you've met Lindo and Vare. And there are all these little sort of spirit human children. And a little Feredir. And so...
Do we heal or rest at all?
Yeah, you're going to get a rest here. Well, we can do a long rest here. But we can, let's talk like throughout the week about any like questions you might have about this place, or and we can even do that a little bit at the beginning of next time. But you're going to get some direction from these guys next week on sort of where this man in black went, what he might be after, maybe even who he is, and hopefully you can sort of get oriented a little bit. And now I have some sort of idea too about what kind of enemies I can put up against you guys. What do you think of these creatures, though? Pretty cool, huh?
Yeah, they're pretty scary. I love the new creatures.
Yeah, I'm using a different book, and I'm modifying them a little bit. So,
Tessero, you saw the freaking Babadook or whatever it was that we saw, right? What was the thing called?
Bodak?
The Bodak, yeah.
Yeah.
I think Tessero had to run in with that. That thing's pretty freaky, too.
All right. Anything for the good of the order?
We're set.
Hey, we're on again 8 o'clock next Sunday, right?
We are.
Cool.
Good.
Sounds good, man.
I think the story is going to start like making sense. Don't base the rest of the sessions on the first session. It's always a little like it takes us a while to get
That
into
was the
it.
same way the last time. It took 2 or 3 sessions before we really got into figuring out how our characters were working. And
Yeah.
Yeah.
All right, guys.
Sure. All right. Have a good night, man.
See y'all.
Good night.
Good night.